Few interests bring people together the way sports can. Last year, the top 10 most watched telecasts were all live sporting events, with the Super Bowl bringing in 121 million viewers. Now, Bob Costas, a voice that has been central to so many iconic sports moments, is marking the end of a legendary run after retiring from play-by-play announcing. Costas spent 4 decades with NBC, covering nearly every major sport and hosting a record 12 Olympics for the network. I sat down with Costas to talk about the unifying power of sports and to reflect on his extraordinary career. Let's talk about how your career started and the breadth of your work. I mean, you have shared that in your senior year of high school, you were actually cut from both the baseball and the basketball teams, and that experience actually reinforced something that was already inside of you, which was this desire to become a sports broadcaster. Was that in your gut always?
Oh, yeah. I was smart enough when I was 10 years old to realize if I was ever going to get into Yankee Stadium without buying a ticket, it was going to be in the booth, not to be wearing pinstripes out there on the field. But, you know, you're in high school, and I wasn't half bad. I was good enough to be the last guy cut, but I knew I wasn't going to be the star of the team. And it was just amusing that the baseball coach actually said to me when he cut me, he said something to the effect of, "You're not bad with the glove and you can run a little bit, but I don't think you can hit your weight, and I don't think you weigh 130, which might have been true when I was 16 years old. And then he said, "Have you ever thought about broadcasting?" And I said, "That's pretty much all I think about." And he was a wry guy, and he said, "Good, try that." So he was onto something. He was a good scout, both of baseball talent, lacking, and maybe potential broadcast talent. Not too bad.
In addition to that, you write about the fact, and you've talked about the fact, that your father also had a really big impact on your life. He tragically passed away of a heart attack when you were just 18 years old. How did that impact who you are, the person you became, the icon that you became?
Well, my father was an inveterate gambler, and I looked at him as a sort of Runyon-esque character, colorful, humorous, high-spirited, but it would be untruthful to say that it was all smooth sailing. There was a lot of trauma in our family life because he had a volatile temper, and the mortgage was often riding on how his bets went, and he didn't bet on, you know, cards or poker games or crap games or go to the racetrack. He bet on baseball, football, basketball games. And so I bonded with him by following those games. I'm sure I would have been a sports fan anyway, like most of my fans, but I became even more knowledgeable. I became granularly knowledgeable because he was following all this so closely, and I was by his side. Now, when you lose someone close to you when you're so young, and your own sense of yourself is not fully formed, you'll always wonder. I wonder to this day how he would have reacted to my good fortune. Could I have made him part of my life in the way I made my children and my friends part of that life? I'd like to think so, but I can't know for sure.
I want to just remind you of some of the amazing moments in your career that you broadcast. Derek Jeter's final at-bat in Yankee Stadium, Tiger Woods winning the U.S. Open in 2008, Michael Jordan's final NBA championship, just to name a few. Was there one moment in all of your career that stands out?
Michael Jordan's last shot for the Bulls.
Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead!
I've always felt that a really good broadcast, a sports broadcast, if it's significant enough, should be the first draft of history, that you should hit upon the themes that are likely to appear in a well-written story in Sports Illustrated a few days later. And I think I managed to do that in that moment.
Who knows what will unfold in the next several months, but that may have been the last shot Michael Jordan will ever take in the NBA.
There was no way you could have anticipated how it would end. Utah was winning the game, and had they won that night, Game 7 would have been on their home floor, and they might have won that game, and so Jordan's career could have ended in defeat. But I was aware enough of the storylines that were possible so that when it panned out as it did, I think I was able to put the caption beneath it that was appropriate.
The moment we find ourselves in now, with sports? Because the industry is changing
Yes.
in a lot of ways. And I want to get your thoughts about that. You have tech giants like Amazon, Apple, and Netflix who are getting into live sports coverage. How do you think that's changing the way people watch sports, absorb sports, and enjoy these pastimes?
Well, sports is coming at people if they want to access it from so many different directions. Now, if you want to, you can access every game. There are highlights everywhere, including on the internet. So information and enjoyment in one way or another are coming at people from so many different directions that even network television, which is still at the center of it, but it doesn't own it. It doesn't have the complete primacy that it once had.
Do you think the fact that everything, every sport, every game is accessible, does that take away some of the excitement?
I think it does diminish it to some extent. There are also different aspects to it as well. Gambling, so much of it is, for at least some portion of the audience, transactional now. You got to bet on the game. You have a different relationship to how that game plays out than if you're just rooting for your team.
Given your father, your background, your childhood, you've witnessed this up close and personal.
Yes.
Is this personal for you? Are you concerned on a personal level about what sports betting might mean for some families?
I am, and on both the Major League Baseball Network and when I did a handful of games on Turner, I refused to read the gambling promos. They had to have someone else read them or use a voice of God type person to read them. I just couldn't in good conscience encourage people to do something, which I know for some of them it's obviously just a little recreation and it's fine, but there's an insidious aspect to it that I didn't want to be part of.
This is your 13th appearance on Meet the Press.
It is?
Yes.
Wow.
We looked, we checked.
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. And it comes at a time when our country is very divided. I don't have to tell you that. Sports is unifying. People rally around their team, the games that they love. What can sports teach us and teach this country about unifying?
Well, the best of sports, especially team sports, is the idea that people from diverse backgrounds come together in the service of a common cause. That cause being to do as well as you possibly can as a team. And you look at the arena and you look at the stadium and you see people with differing political viewpoints and from differing demographics, but they're all there rooting for their team. And in that moment, that's unifying. On the other hand, some of the tone now that surrounds sports, as we talked about before, is angry and accusatory. And it becomes tribal sometimes in a way that isn't really all that healthy in my mind.
Politics is a part of sports.
Yes.
Sports is a part of politics. Does it concern you that we are seeing in some instances politics infused in sports?
I think that politics inevitably has intersected with sports. Anyone who says that politics has no place in sports has to be abysmally unaware of the history here, because until fairly recently in our nation's history, sports and some aspects of entertainment have been the only avenues that were broadly, and even then there was a fight. Jackie Robinson didn't come until 1947, that were broadly accessible to people of color, or where someone like Billie Jean King could make a larger statement about women's rights, not just within sports. And to turn your back on that is to wear a blindfold. So when people say stick to sports, I think what they actually mean most often is stick to sports unless you're saying something that I want to hear and I agree with. But if you're saying something I disagree with that comes from a different perspective, well, then you should just shut up and say there's a ground ball to shortstop. I never bent to that.
And just finally, as you think about the future, do you ever miss it? Do you ever think about getting back into the game?
I don't miss what I used to do. I think I can still be effective and still enjoy it in an emeritus role. So whatever I do should be in an emeritus role. But I have had more than enough times at bat, to throw out a cliched type metaphor. I've had more than enough times at bat. And many years ago, I passed the baton. And I'm generally generally satisfied and gratified with what my career has been.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.